All right. How are we doing, guys? Gary, see you joined the chat. Good to have you here. Just going to give it a few minutes and let the stragglers come in. I see just hopping in here. So we'll get a few minutes and we'll get going. Awesome. Thanks, Bob. Don't even have to ask the question. I appreciate it. No delay or anything, Bob. This is a new platform we're using for the Lunch and Learn, obviously. Nice. How you doing, Josh? Good to see you here. Great. Thank you, Gary. All right. 1 second. I'll hop in. I'm just going to open the window. It's a little hot in here. There you go. If there's any background noise, just ping me. Yeah, Gary, you're on mute, but I can see you on the chat. Everyone join as a co-host, then you can talk. We might actually be doing that going forward. So, all right, I'm going to hop in here. This is great. I mean, thanks for coming, guys. I know I just sent this out a couple hours ago, so we'll have more reliable promotion as we go forward, back on the weekly schedule, which I'm excited for. Took a long break, got some good family time, busy with everything work related, but this is something that I really enjoy. And it helps me, it forces me to stay on the front end of everything that's happening with deal origination, the deal origination tools. It's easy to get buried in the weeds of running your business and not zip up to 30,000 feet. I've always really, really enjoyed this because it pushes me to do that at least once a week and get back into these 5 stages that I've been going through for 5 years now. And honestly, it keeps me honest. So this helps me, this helps my business to get back in here and actually do the stuff that I'm preaching. I'm just like one of you, right? I'm running my own business and it's easy to lose track of this stuff. But as I was looking back on this, I just recently did a presentation. Josh, you were kind enough to have me out to the TAB, Texas Association of Business Brokers, where I presented just our deal origination process. And as I was going through that, I hadn't done it in a while. It really struck me how much of this has stayed the course of time, right? The different stages that I teach here that we've gone through at BizNexus, the tools and what's working at any given time, that changes rapidly. I think there's been a lot of change just this year, which we can kind of go through. But the actual stages of approaching deal origination as a long game and niching down, I think we've really kind of hit our sweet spot here where everyone's starting to talk about this. For a long time, that wasn't the case. And let me go through briefly, not so briefly. I think I'm going to talk for about half an hour. We can kind of jump into some questions. But my game plan for today is to go through our general process and talk about some things that have been working well, not working in each stage of the process, but really set it up so that in the weeks to come, we can dig in on any area that you guys want. So that's how we've done it in the past. That's how I'd like to do it going forward. And again, so much has changed with AI and just with the tools that are now available. When we were first doing this, we actually had to build out our own software to do multi-channel with email and LinkedIn and everything else. Now they're just superior tools that all of us can jump in on. So really exciting times and excited to be back here. So thanks for attending, guys. I'm just going to hop in. I do see a lot of people who I have not met. So I'm assuming we've got a healthy mix of brokers and buyers. That's typically how it works. You're all here for deal origination. Really doesn't matter. You're going after the same prospect, the same end target. And that's something that I do like to try to make clear with any of our clients and anybody who we speak with about deal origination along the way. Brokers, you're not just competing with brokers. You're competing with search funders, with first-time acquirers, with vendors now who are going after your owner's inbox, right? It's gotten very busy in all of our email inboxes, LinkedIn, everything. You are competing for the attention of that end target seller. So with that in mind, we approach deal origination as a process that's appropriate for buyers, is appropriate for brokers. It's just, buyers, you're trying to get the LOI, brokers, you're trying to get the engagement, but you're going after that same target with different value props. I've been at this in M&A for a long time, 20 years. For those of you who have been with this presentation for the past 5 years, you see this is my daughter. It used to be my son. So I've gone through a couple children through the course of this lunch and learn. Think, bigger forehead, a little more gray in the beard, but same kind of stuff. We do it, week in, week out. We work with BizNexus Concierge. That is our full service deal origination program. I also run BizNexus. That's the marketplace for do-it-yourself deal sourcing. And that has given me the privilege of just kind of having a front row seat to what's working, what's not working. A lot of mistakes, right? Whether that's mistakes that we make, which we do on an ongoing basis, we course correct, but mistakes, especially that prospects who come in and wind up joining up with us, we always ask them what's working, what's not working. And we get a really unique view, I think, of where people have been making mistakes, what's working, but oftentimes what is not working is more informative for us. So that's me. The main gist, you're going to see some old slides here that I go through. This and a couple others are actually from an IBBA presentation that I did, I think, like in 2018. And the gist, like back then, when a lot of intermediaries were just approaching digital marketing as if it was this new, kind of like AI has hit us now in 2023. Like digital marketing was the transformational shift for a lot of the brick and mortar brokers. And that's a lifetime ago now. But what was different then is still different now. Basically, your end seller prospect knows a hell of a lot more about you. And if you approach an end seller prospect without setting up your profile, your brand, all the breadcrumbs that they're going to find after they get their first impression of you, if you don't set that up correctly, then don't bother. So you want to begin deal sourcing with the end in mind, and I'll explain that as we go. So this is an old presentation, so I'm not going to dig into all of this. I'm going through my process. I'm going to go through what works, what doesn't work. If you guys want to talk about anything specific that you hear about in this presentation in the weeks to come, just shoot me an email. We'll follow up after the webinar, and you can let us know what you'd like us to dig into. This has always been done based on feedback. I want to keep it that way as we go forward in this new iteration. So our philosophy on deal origination is and always has been really two things. Niching down and going multi-channel, right? Thinking of deal origination as a long game, not just 1, 2, 3, 4. This is me. I want to buy your business. This is me. I want to sell your business, get a business valuation. But, differentiating between that first approach and then the engagement and the nurturing and the capturing for the long process. We've always talked about niching down, mainly because it's just getting more crowded. And anyone who's here and who's been in this game for more than a year has seen how crowded this has gotten. And that is just a bigger argument for niching down going forward, because this is not going to change. If the market's going south, if transaction volume is dropping and competition keeps increasing, this is going to be more and more competitive. So the sooner you can put your flag in the ground and stake a claim on your niche and start building, I think the better. And we've seen this in 2023 with our clients. I mean, to be open and honest, we've seen it clearly. The clients who are generalists, the clients who are geographic focused, we have struggled. They have struggled. Those campaigns have not gone nearly as well as our clients who have been niche down. So much so that we're not even taking on clients unless they agree to be in a niche, or they're moving into a niche, or they are niche down. And that is because we just don't think we're going to have the success in this environment going forward unless we're working with people who are niched. So what is niching down, and why do you do it? You're building your authority within a certain space, right? And you're prospecting not just to your end target sellers, but to the referral prospects, right? The financial advisors, the lawyers, the accountants, the commercial insurance reps, the niche vendors, right? So if you're focused on acquiring a fintech company, could you focus on a software dev company that works with fintech companies and build those relationships? All of that has to be factored in with a very specific niche. And then you want to build up your reputation as a qualified authority within that niche over time, lead with value, but then make sure you're tracking the hell out of every interaction so you know when the time is right to kind of go and make a salesy close or salesy approach. We approach our deal origination in 5 stages. First one, optimizing your profile for conversion, right? Optimizing your brand for that niche, making it stupid simple for the croc brain. When they see you are the person who sells fintech companies, right? You are in there acquiring multiple fintech companies. When they go and check your LinkedIn, when they check in your website, when they see blog articles, there's proof that you're acquiring fintech companies. The second phase is the targeting. So you want to get really specific on your targeting, and not just for your end target seller, but for those referral prospects. And that goes down to, financial advisors. Are you going after boutique financial advisor referral prospects who might still be building their book of business? Or are you going after financial advisors who have been in that game for over 11 years and they're working for a larger Morgan Stanley type operation? So they're less likely to actually be looking for a referral partnership, be focused on that. So we go through all the specifics of the targeting for each prospect type, and we'll dig into those in the lunch and learns. But really getting granular with your targeting before you build out any campaigns. When you build campaigns, again, granular specificity is has always been the name of the game. But now, if you don't have it, it's not a nice to have. You must have it. There's so many changes taking place right now. Google just sold Google domains to Squarespace, and if you're doing any sort of cold outreach on Google, that's gotten a lot harder, and it's going to get much harder, anticipated in February 2024. So a lot of people switched over to Outlook or alternative email providers. There's so much changing there. You want to make sure that you have as many customized variables on outreach as you can have. You want to make sure that you have hyper personalized campaigns, smaller lists, better open rates, better reply rates, campaigns that aren't asking. I remember, even a year ago, right? But like 5 years ago, people would do these long initial introductions, and nobody's reading that today in the inbox. Even a year ago, you'd have brokers approaching with evaluation. Can I talk to you about selling your business? And that's not converting. If you can approach and state who you are and offer a very low barrier offering, right? Can I shoot you the one pager on the fintech companies I've acquired this past year? Can I shoot you the one pager on our process? Get that first yes, and then continue that conversation. It's just there's so many little things that have changed really just this year, and we had to really adapt our processes internally. Q1, Q2 started seeing really good results in Q3, but it really has just gotten more noisy. So next step is nurturing, where you're just staying on top of these prospects on an ongoing basis, adding value. Or are you doing webinars like this, newsletter? We'll go through the other formats, and then capturing. And that comes into a lot of automation, right? So how do you have your CRM linked up? Are you tracking the clicks? If, seller Bob, I'll get into that slide. It's going to be in this presentation. If your target seller Bob is clicking through onto your website, do you see that? Can you set up your capture activities for you or your BDR if you're working with a team, or if you have an admin or BDR working for you? What actions should they be doing? What actions should you be doing? So generally 30,000 feet, that's where we are. All right. I'm assuming not too long-winded. We haven't had anybody drop off. So I'll dig into each phase here and just generally talk about what I've seen. And again, we're going to run about half an hour, and then we'll close it out, and then we'll dig in to the specifics going forward based on your feedback. All right. So optimizing your profile, right? This is a slide again from that 2018 presentation that I initially did for the IBBA. I wound up doing for the other organizations. And I'd like to throw this slide in there. One, because it does kind of offer the proof that we've been doing this for a while. But two, it's still so relevant, right? And this gray-haired guy I called Seller Bob in 2018. And I wanted to articulate this is the journey that a seller will go through in the process of making their decision to engage with a business broker at that time, or to engage with a buyer. And this red square is really what matters when you're talking about optimizing your profile, because if you're doing any outreach, like this first outreach could be advertising, it could be a cold email, it could be a LinkedIn approach, it could be any sort of stimulus that makes them aware, hey, this is something to think about. This is somebody who I should be talking to. Then you go in, you find the blog post, you find the proof, you find, proof that you are working in the area that Seller Bob is in day to day, right? That you are working with people just like Seller Bob. When Seller Bob gets to the point of actually digging in, thinking about a conversation and going to your profile, going to your website, if you have social proof, if you have tombstones on your LinkedIn in the featured section, right? If you have testimonials from people who look just like Seller Bob, who are just like Seller Bob, if you have photos sitting down with Seller Bob and his team with a bottle of wine after a successful transaction, that counts for everything right now, right? Because there's so many people out there claiming to be authorities in a space, claiming to work in a space, and you don't know if it's ChatGPT, you don't know if they're authentic. If you can offer that social proof, that's really going to help differentiate you in this environment, in my opinion. So when Seller Bob gets here, this is where we begin, is your profile, your LinkedIn profile, your website, right? If you're going after a specific target, the first thing we do is a brand audit. We want to make sure that your profile speaks to the croc brain of that Seller Bob, that when he comes to you, he says, oh, this person is addressing my problems, like they're solving my pain points. So that's the first step that we want to focus on in a gist. These lunch and learns, we'll go through all of these, how you can drum up content with ChatGPT and fill out your articles and your blog posts and make sure that when Seller Bob is searching, now you can put out so much more content that matches Seller Bob's niche so that they find you, you look clearly credible, and you separate yourself that way. So we'll go through that in the lunch and learns going forward. What should you think about, generally speaking? Website, like where are you thinking about your brand? Website, landing pages in your campaigns, niche landing pages, definitely we'll go through how to incorporate those. Your LinkedIn profile, content, articles, white paper, social proof, etc. So I'm not going to go through the online branding tips because this is a deeper dive. We can do this on future lunch and learns. And again, I'm targeting half an hour, not 2 hours here. So I'm going to fire through that. Website tips, same thing. We can come back and we can do that. LinkedIn tips, we'll come back. Now, targeting. We've gone through who you want to target, business owner, referral prospects, effective targeting criteria. We can do lunch and learns just on targeting criteria, right? So if you're in Sales Navigator, are you looking at private companies? Are you looking at companies with at least an 11 head count? Are you looking at, keyword fintech and or Boolean search? We can get very granular on the targeting criteria, depending on what database you're using, depending on if you're using LinkedIn. We're doing this day in, day out, so we can help you along the way with your targeting and what we see working with getting specific on targeting and then matching the messaging to that. So again, just think, I want to build out my presence as a qualified authority in this niche. And I want to do that through referral prospects. I want to do that through end target prospects. I want to do that with anybody who's in touch with my end target seller on an ongoing basis. And I want that to ideally snowball, right? So if I'm putting out content, if I'm seen as a qualified authority, then you're going to stay top of mind with all the people who could refer you or who might be thinking about a potential acquisition, exit, etc. That's the goal, is to really get beyond anything that I'm talking about here with outbound, so that you've built up a reputation you can just rely on inbound. I mean, to date, especially in business brokerage, the most successful people in these organizations like AMAA and ACG and IBBA and M&A Source, they're typically people who are just sitting back on referrals. They've got some good referral sources and they get the large majority of their deal flow through referrals. Ideally, if you niche down, you can get to that point a lot faster. And if you take advantage of everything digital in terms of targeting and outreach, you can build up your network of end target sellers and referral prospects a lot faster than the majority of people who are doing really well in these organizations who have built these reputations and these relationships over a lifetime. This is a way to accelerate that if you're doing that in a disciplined manner on an ongoing basis. So we'll dig into targeting criteria as well as we go through these lunch and learns. Step 3, building campaigns. I jumped into some of the stuff that is working, right? I jumped into some of the stuff that like we were failing with in Q1, right? We were, I think, cutting corners with some of our clients because we had high volume and people processes where I mean, it's hard to run a business. If you're running any sort of service business, hopefully all of you know, if you're a business owner or if you're a service provider, a lot of this depends on your people, and people are the toughest part of any business. Managing people are the toughest part of any business. Q1, we scaled to a point where we were kind of breaking. We were bursting from the inside. And honestly, we had trouble really niching down with all of our campaigns the way we had in the past. So, I'll give you an example. If you do have a geography and you're going after a geography, you could just look at, business owners with an 11 plus head count, run a campaign, and hopefully you get some hits. Or you could separate it by each industry and make sure that each industry is targeted with language to that industry and is kicking back to a landing page for that industry. And that is a difference. It's night and day if you're able to do that. So we really took a step back and reassessed and dropped down on volume and ramped up on specificity and quality, and the results have been really great. And I'm going to encourage you guys to do the same as we go forward in this environment, because everyone's doing volume. Who cares about volume, right? The more you can resonate with your end target prospect, the more you're going to get. Seem authentic, or be authentic, add value, but really get that initial reply and get that conversation, which, if you can put on your sales hat and have a successful discovery call and move that through to LOI or an engagement, this is what we're trying to coach, is to get you to that successful discovery call. In the past, I've called it the proverbial cup of coffee. Everything we talk about in these lunch and learns is to get you to that cup of coffee, is to get you to that in-person meeting where you've gotten your prospect out of the online universe that you've been canvassing and into a real life meeting. And in today's world, especially post-COVID, that real life meeting could be a Google Meet, it could be a Zoom, but at least you're having that conversation with your end target prospect. So building campaigns, we'll go through walkthroughs. I want this stuff to be actionable. So if you have questions, you want to go through an email sequence, a LinkedIn sequence, what's connection, what's an in-mail, how do you approach it? We want to go open kimono on this. We're just going to try to provide that value and hopefully have a collaborative discussion as we go. All right. Email, LinkedIn, phone, text, snail mail. Text has been super interesting. If you have people who are opting into that, there are certain areas in M&A where it's like you'll have an owner who's interested, and then it's just impossibly hard to actually lock them down for the meeting, even though you know that they want it and they've expressed interest and they want to meet. Business owners are business owners, right? By nature, it's impossible to lock somebody down. It's half the reason why I had to ghost on this lunch and learn for the past 6 months. Locking them down with every available tool that you have. We'll go through that, and we'll go through what we see working. We'll get into all the tips for the specific channels as well. Again, each one of these could be its own lunch and learn. Step 4, nurturing. Newsletter, webinar, content. If you're a busy professional, if you're a busy intermediary, if you're busy with acquisitions, can you hack it? Can you get on somebody else's podcast? Can you get on somebody else's webinar? Are you leveraging these tools the right way? This webinar is a great example. I think we have 21 people live in this. I did not promote this the appropriate way, but again, it's my first at bat in a really long time, so I didn't really want to go big on the first one. But are you promoting that webinar the right way? We'll show you the way that we're doing it, what works when we're actually promoting it, and not just doing an email 2 hours before the webinar. But then also, what are you doing with the registrants? We've got 21 live people now, but we had, I think, 60 people before I checked. An hour before the webinar, we had 60 registrants. So those 60 people who registered, I know they're interested in deal origination, right? So what am I doing there? Am I following up? Are we sending them something of value? Am I asking them a question before the webinar? Is there something that we can talk about? And then if we reference that, can you follow up with that person? It's not duplicitous. It's ways to make sure that you're able to have a conversation with someone who's genuinely interested in your service. Are you setting yourself up to capture that interest as it presents itself? So tools like this, if you're leveraging the right way, it'll separate you from the 99% of people who are doing webinars, and they're not following up with registrants. They're not differentiating between who shows up and who registers, right? It kind of doesn't matter if anybody shows up for your webinar. If none of you had showed up today, I'd still do this, and I'd have the video, and I'd be able to follow up with the registrants if they're registrants. And that is insanely valuable if you're leveraging it the right way. So we're going to show you how we do that and what we see working. with M&A specifically. Newsletter tips, webinar tips, content tips, video, audio, all of this. Again, each one of those can be its own lunch and learn. We'll be doing this going forward. So this, like 30,000 foot, I know I'm vomiting a lot of information on you. This is not how the lunch and learns are going to shake out going forward. We're going to zip into one of these phases and one tactic that we see working and kind of go deep and narrow and give you something that's actionable. That's how we've always done it in the past. That's what we're going to do going forward. We don't do the big long-winded introductions. We just want to zip in on something. We assume that you're familiar with this 5-stage process, and we jump right in. Capture. Now, this is the area where we talk about automation. This is the area where we talk about, call to action placements. This is the area where we talk about, if you're sending out a newsletter, are you, putting in the call to action button? Do you know anybody who's thinking about selling their business? Like, we offer generous referral fees, right? You have that on an ongoing basis. If you're using a CRM, like we like Pipedrive, we're an official partner of Pipedrive. We've used HubSpot and SharpSpring, and we've used every CRM out there. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter which CRM you're using, as long as you're actually using it. And if you're disciplined using your CRM, you're going to differentiate yourself from the majority of your peers. And that's for, even though the majority of business brokers it's a very different target persona than the majority of search funders. Neither of you are really using your CRMs religiously the way you should be. Brokers, I don't know why, because you're in this for the long game. It counts for so much. If you're one of your key differentiators as an intermediary, as a business broker, or as a capital provider who's going after a specific target for 7-10 years, for a longer time than 1 or 2 years, which is the typical time frame for these individual acquirers, these search funders who will go in and try to buy a business and then either make an acquisition or not. One of your biggest differentiators is that you're in this for the long game, is that you're able to build up this niche reputation, is that you're able to get this flywheel going and get the sellers coming to you first. So if you're not using a CRM, you are shooting yourself in the foot in this environment. If you're not doing it religiously, if you're not setting up things like tracking and lead scoring, right? If someone is visiting your sell a business page or your business valuation page multiple times, if they're a business owner, you want to weight them more than other visitors. You want their lead score. If you have a lead score 1 to 100 and you set like anything over 80, I want that task to go to me. I want a sales call task to go to me. That's the kind of stuff that you want to be doing, leveraging a CRM so it's automated, so that you make sure that you can reach out to an owner when they've indicated interest. Not cold calling, but calling based on activity that indicates they're thinking about it. Retargeting, super cheap, very effective in M&A. I've been saying that for 5 years, only more true now. Yeah. So key takeaways of our process. This presentation, this is left over from the tab presentation. Building up your niche persona, building up your niche practice, right? Leading with value, educating within that niche, really nailing your nurture process. So differentiating between the get in front of your prospect with cold email or LinkedIn or whatever tool you're using, the 3-4 email drip where you say, this is who I am, this is what I do. Do you want to see this sales deck? Do you want to see my one pager? Can I send you information on how we do it? But really, like, do you want to talk about this now or not? 99% of the people who you approach this industry will not be ready at first pass to have a conversation with you about exiting their business, about potential valuation for their most sensitive asset, for their biggest asset. You're going to have to earn that trust. And so that's the second part, where if you don't get that connection, if you don't get that hand raise at the first pass, you need to have an effective program in place for nurturing them, for staying on top of them, for staying top of mind. The people who differentiate between that first phase and the second long phase, that is the difference between, are you staying on 100% of these prospects, or are you going for that small percentage that might want to have a conversation right now because it's like lightning in a bottle. You caught them in the moment, right? Maybe they're going through a divorce, or there's some sort of health issue, and there's something that is driving a transaction, motivating a transaction. That's not going to be the majority of cases, like not even close. So you want to make sure that you are staying in front of them over the long term after first approach. Big mistakes that we see, again, still, it's like getting the message across in this industry. There's a lot of ego in this industry. Put that aside. Less about you, more about them, right? Making sure that people see a solution to their pain points. Seller Bob sees you work with Seller Bobs. You care about Seller Bobs. You're speaking to Seller Bob's pain points. Like, sure, there's a time and a place to differentiate yourself based on your credentials, based on what you do. But initially, you want to make sure that they see you're talking about their pain points. If you're on a discovery call, less shoving your experience down their throat, more listening and empathizing. That's what we see working in terms of building the relationships with these owners and getting past the noise of your competitors. And again, like you probably don't want to attend these lunch and learns at all if you don't want to niche down, because I'm going to say that every week we talk about that. And it's because it's what I believe. It's what I believe for a long time in terms of really separating yourself in this industry. I mean, it's hard to get an owner's interest for a transaction if you're just starting out. If you're a new family office, if you're a new private equity shop, if you're a new broker, the cold outreach is your only game until you build up that reputation. And so niching down it's a must in terms of getting ahead quickly, and it's only getting more competitive. So I'll be talking about that every week. That's the final takeaway. So we're not going to make these salesy. We're not going to make big pitches. But if you do want to work with us, when you go to biznexus.com, you can request a demo. And the main opportunities to work with us, we've got our marketplace, which is do it yourself. Just get in there and pay a monthly fee, and you can get access to all the deals and the brokers. We match brokers with buyers and sellers. We have BizNexus Concierge, which is our flagship full service everything. That's where all of this stuff, this material comes from with Concierge. And we actually have a new partner program, which I'm really excited about, because that's a collaborative approach to deal origination. Basically, it's based on success. So there's an initial setup fee, and then we're truly in it with you, where it's kind of a competition. We give you your targets, we give you your funnel, we give you everything. We go after your prospects from the BizNexus brand. We show you how to do it from your brand, and then your niche is your niche forever, unless you're not performing over the long run. Schedule a demo if you want to talk about that. Again, success-based. I think that's a really interesting model compared to what's out there. And we've already got about 5 people on without any marketing. We've mentioned it once in the newsletter. We're going to cap it for Q1, but I'd love to talk to you about that. If you have a niche and if you want to collaborate with us on deal origination, go schedule the demo and just specify you're interested in the partner program. Q&A. Let's see. Thanks, guys. Wow. I haven't even looked at this. All right. All right. Yeah. So Ella, you've been on the platform. You haven't had brokers respond to you. This is not on the topic of the lunch and learn, but it is a problem with this industry. So I am going to address it. The broker response time as an industry is something that the industry has to work on. This is not something that's unique to the BizNexus platform. I think it's just it's a problem with the industry. So when you click on a broker's deal or a broker's profile, we're showing you the broker's phone number, we're showing you the broker's LinkedIn, we're showing you the broker's email, we're giving you every opportunity to connect with them off platform. That's a big difference between our platform and the other platforms out there. We're not trying to capture that transaction in our marketplace. We just want to make the match. So if a broker's not getting back to you, I'd suggest reaching out on LinkedIn. I'd suggest calling them. And you can always email us, nudge@biznexus.com, and we'll just give them a kick in the butt for you. We'll track them down and say, this person has been trying to get a hold of you. So nudge@biznexus.com, or reach out outside the platform. If you're still having trouble, just schedule a meeting with me, because I want to hear about this stuff. And if we can fix it, we want to. So thank you for that. All right. Okay, guys. So that's it for today. That's the lunch and learn. I'm excited to do this. We'll have it next Wednesday, 1:00. We're going to do this week in, week out. If you have any feedback, please just reply to the email that you got today with the newsletter and let us know what you want to dig into, what you want to spend more time on, less time on. We want to base this off of your feedback going forward. So that is valuable. Thanks, guys. And we'll end it here.